Welcome, investigator. Evil is on the rise. Crime is escalating. Our mission is to eliminate the crime by exposing evil, examine why it manifests, and highlight the brave souls that confront it every day. Join us as we work together to bring justice to every victim. Welcome to All Things Crime. Here's your host, Jared Bradley.
Hey everybody, it's Jared. Welcome to another episode of All Things Crime. Appreciate you watching and listening. Man, we're having an awesome day today. Hope you are as well. While you're here, make sure to subscribe and hit that little bell so you never miss an episode. And my guest today, if you're watching this on YouTube or Rumble, you probably noticed that the area where you can see me, but normally you would see my guest. Well, today we can't have that. So, and the reason is it will become apparent to you throughout the interview. But my guest today is Aiden Gabor, and I'm going to read this because I think his bio really speaks for itself. It says, Aiden Gabor is a former associate of a notorious crime family, and that crime family is in New Jersey. So that'll tell you a little bit about his background right there. Who, against all odds, found his way back to the side of justice. Approached as a teenager by the DOJ with a daunting ultimatum. Faced life imprisonment for crimes including racketeering, embezzlement, extortion, and conspiracy to commit murder. He chose to become a confidential informant. I can, just in reflecting back on my teenage years, I can't imagine being approached by the DOJ and be given that ultimatum. So I'm excited to hear from Aiden about that. For over a decade, Aiden worked undercover, risking his life to help the DOJ arrest and convict over a dozen high-ranking police officers and politicians. So a little corruption there. His gripping memoir, Conflicting Loyalties, which, by the way, I think all of you, if you're into the true crime, like I think you probably are if you're listening to this show, Conflicting Loyalties by Aiden Gabor, I think would be an amazing read, and I'm looking forward to reading it myself. Offers an unflinching look into his life as a Mafia enforcer and a DOJ informant. This book is a powerful narrative of transformation, shedding light on the darkest corners of the criminal world while ultimately illustrating the redemptive power of faith. Aiden, with that introduction, welcome to the show.
Jared, thank you for having me on. It's an honor to be on with you, sir.
Oh, it's the pleasure's all mine. And I have to say, this is a first. We have never had anybody like you. You know, typically this show, we interview detectives and CSIs, forensic scientists, you know, people that are kind of part of the investigative process of most normal crimes. But organized crime is definitely an area that, I mean, other than exposing politicians, I guess those guys, some of the people in politics are the ultimate in organized crime there, but not so much on the mob level. So, boy, where do we start? One of the things that I have been thinking about in preparing for, you know, talking with you is, how much do you think most normal people understand about the mob? You know, there's all sorts of Hollywood videos out there, TV shows, and things that it almost like glamorizes, if that's even a word, glamorizes the mob life. So why don't you start with telling us, you know, number one, how you actually got involved with being in the mob, and really, especially specifically the New Jersey mob, what that's really like.
You know, what you see in the movies, that's somewhat true. I mean, there's some that you can watch and you get some aspect until you're in there and realize it's more of a family. That's really how it works. You really have loyalty. You know, like I say this every time. I never said or did anything against the crew I ran with, even though they may have thought I had. I have never done anything against them. It's like I said, about bad politicians and bad law enforcement that I really went after, that I knew growing up. Um, as far as in the whole thing, my dad was an associate. So that's what got me into it. My dad was associate one of Cabos, and when I was young, 9, 10 years old, I was really big for my age. And I got in a lot of scuffles. You know, we get in little fights and all that. We had, like, I guess you could call it barbecue, big get together when everybody came in from the old country, and the food was amazing, and you get together. And I got in fights and beat up on kids that were 5, 6 years older than me. And I wouldn't give up. You know, I wouldn't call it Rocky, but I was just dumb enough that you could slap me around, but I'm not going to get. I'm going to find something to hit you with. But I got into that, and then one day Eddie came to me at the car and he goes, "Hey, do me a favor, ride up to we had like a shop which would have like a little like social club in there, so but it was more of like a repair shop." Later in life, I learned there was more than that, and I would ride up there. I rode up there one day, and he goes, "Take this package and drop it off, and don't look in it. Don't stop for anybody." I'm like, okay. And you had a respect thing. When anybody older asks you something, you would do it. And I did it. I drove my bike. I dropped off this stuff. And at the time, I didn't realize who these people were. They were politicians mostly, and high law enforcement guys. And I would drop it off. And sometimes they give me something to bring back. And I did this till I was about 12, 13. And I'd sweep around the shop and get around there. We had a guy I didn't put in the book. I did, but we took him out. His name was Nicky. And Nicky he was kind of a different older guy. He started teaching me how to drive, teach me how to shoot a gun, which I thought, oh, wow, this is awesome. But then he taught me how to use an ice pick. And he said, don't use a knife. Knife just slashes. An ice pick will work the best. You put it right here, or you could stab somebody 9, 10 times. Don't be worried about that. Leave it in them because there's not going to leave fingerprints, and run away. You can get another one. They're nothing. Where a knife, you have a better chance because of the way they are. They can figure out who you are, and that's where I learned. I started working my way up. And get in there and you learn. It's just a family. Everybody. We've had some scuffles in there, but as I was learning, you'd see people coming in. And I mean, one time I saw a guy when I was just, I want to say 12, 13. He was getting beat up, and Eddie looked at me. He goes, "Yeah, see what happens when somebody doesn't pay." And I'm like, "Why? You gonna kill him?" No, we're not gonna kill him. We're just letting him know that he needs to pay his debt. And he said something I didn't understand, and they got mad, and I went and hit him and dragged him around, and they pulled me away and said, "No, we don't want to hurt him too bad. We're just giving him like an attention getter." But you learn that as you get up there. And as it went on, I just ended up just doing things for him, Eddie. And then Eddie just took a liking to me. And there's one incident we had a guy, Dominic, which is like his right-hand guy. He was his main enforcer. Dominic really didn't care for me. I don't think he cared for my dad. And he said something to me and threw me against the wall. And I grabbed the stick and I hit him. And I remember this day when he pulled the gun on me and put it on me. And I swear I thought I was dead. I didn't care. And Eddie stopped and said, "Hey, leave the kid alone." And then he pulled me and said, "You got to give respect. You cannot do this. I can't release him. Next time I'm going to let him kick the shit out of you." And that's basically what, I learned growing up. And then I just worked my way up. I guess I started driving for Eddie, and then he took me with Dominic, and he said, "Dominic, show him the ropes." And Dominic's like, "Whatever." And because there's a couple of guys in the crew that were in there. Some were in the crew that shouldn't be. Had a couple of guys that didn't like blood or were like kind of pansy, I guess the word that they would use. But you couldn't because they were there. And I was more of I didn't know it until later in my life. Why? I didn't care if somebody was getting hurt. Blood didn't bother me. Somebody screaming didn't bother me. Like to this day, I can't watch movies with my wife because I laugh at horror movies or someone's getting their head ripped off, their arm snapped off. To me, it's funny. All that stuff is it's just hilarious. It was all my whole life. And, I just worked my way up. And I remember the first time I went with Dominic, I'm talking to him, and he just punched me as hard as he can. And I was in the passenger. And I was like, oh, and he looked at me and goes, we're not even, but that's for when you hit me. You're lucky. And we just went and I collected. I started learning to collect from the local establishments, and no one ever gave any issues. Like you said with the mob movies and stuff like that, they're showing killing people. That really didn't happen. Most time, anybody that got anything really bad to them was poaching. Another crew poached in your territory. That was the problem. It was always against other crews, really bad things. And I learned that, hey, you can't kill people because that's bad business. They're not going to pay you. Sometimes you got to make a point, but not, the ultimate, then it brings heat down on you. We don't want the heat. And they had enough bullshit. So that's really how I worked my way up. And then eventually I worked to Enforcer, where I would go collect money from these. It was mostly degenerate gamblers, because we had prostitution, which they wouldn't let me go out because I was a teenager, so I couldn't go buy any of the girls. But we did the numbers where we would do like betting and stuff like that, loaning money out. The biggest thing we were a chop shop. We'd steal cars and chop the cars up. And that's what we did. That was our big thing. I learned how to steal cars. When I was 16, I stole my first car, and which was easy. And at the time, I had some idiot trying to talk like, "What are you doing? Get over! I'm going to call the police." I beat the hell out of him. To the point he was whining, and I got in the car and drove away. Never heard anything after that. But that's really, really, really what it was. Is I worked my way up, and one of the funniest thing, I wouldn't call it funny. Everybody gets little names in there. And one day we were sitting there eating outside at this little deli, and this guy walks by. It was across the street, and Eddie goes, "Hey, that MFer owes me money." And I just ran after him. And I started kicking the crap out of him before Dominic can get there. I'm beating the crap out of him, kicking him around, smacking him. "You better get the money. We need it now." And Dominic looks at me and goes, "You're still eating a sandwich. Are you shitting me? You're beating the hell out of this guy and you're eating a sandwich? Go back to Eddie." And he's like, "You better," and he goes, "Oh my God, you're still eating. What's a good sandwich? I'm not going to get rid of it. I love sandwich." And so he goes back, goes, "Hey, this little fucker's eating." He goes, "Well, okay, sandwich." I'm like, "What?" "Oh, hey, Aiden Sandwich." I'm like, "Oh, I hate this. To this day, I hated that name. That's what they used to call me. And I hate that name. But I worked my way up to where I would go collect money and all this. And one thing, Eddie's biggest thing that we had back then was we didn't do drugs. And I can't say the exact words, but basically it was because we did stuff with the gangs, because that's with territory, and let the gangs sell to their neighborhood. And we're going to say, we're going to percentage. Anytime we did something, we would give them something. Anytime they did something, they would give us something. And we kind of helped. We had a problem, they would help us out in certain situations. If they had a problem, we helped them out in certain situations. You kind of work together, because if you didn't, you're going to be at war all the time. So we learned to work together with them. Like they would steal cars and bring it to us, and we'd pay them money for it. But that's kind of how it is growing up in that. I just learned that it's respect and it's family. And, all the way up to the day when the FBI came to start arresting everybody, I mean, I thought I'd be there for the rest of my life.
So when you say New Jersey and you say you have a certain amount of territory, I mean, how much territory are you talking about? Is that like all of Newark, or what when you say territory, what are you talking about?
It's a couple towns. I mean, you're not talking a vast amount. We would have, most of the area we had would be considered east. I mean, several towns. It's hard to, I mean, there's no set, like, it's just boundaries. You
Mhm.
had to this street, to this street, to this street, and then they had another crew had it to this street, to that, to whatever. It's just streets. Um, and when you had that, you know, it's just if someone's poaching is when the problems happen. You come and poach in our area, you better have a reason you're there. Um, and people will they try anything to. I mean, we had guys coming in trying to do protection with people in our area, and that was a problem. And we dealt with it in just a way, you know, sometimes the coppers would talk about it, sometimes they send us to talk to them about it. I mean, I can't say exactly what we did, but we did some things that you needed to get done to make sure that your area was good. And at that time, compared to nowadays, that area was so, there was not much crime. There was the gangs weren't doing anything as far as that. They're still mostly they're doing their drug thing. They fought amongst themselves. You know, the neighborhood was safe. You could walk around, and there really wasn't any going on. Nowadays, forget it. You
Yeah,
know,
it's interesting that, um, nowadays it just seems like I don't want to say a petty crime, but it seems like the just kind of the thuggish life is more individual than it is. See, at least that's what it seems like from my perspective as an outsider. Is that kind of the way you see it as well?
yeah. I mean, I saw friends up there, and you know, they're completely changed. They sell drugs now. They really do it. And they still got the things with the gang, but yeah, it's individual now. There's really not that much respect for each other, and it's I would call it chaos, but there's no structure. That's the way I would put it.
Mhm.
There's a little bit. It's not like the old days, you know, when with the feds coming in, they cleaned house. You know, as far as our crew, everybody got arrested. I mean, I was never arrested as a youngster. I got out of it, you know, because we were paying the cops, and that's where I knew that every one of the cops and stuff I knew, and we would give them money, and so they would look the other way, and it's just about everything. And unfortunately, that's the way it was back then. You know, and when the FBI came in, Eddie came to me and says, I'm leaving. You know, everything's happened. You haven't been arrested. You have a chance. I have a chance to play football in college. Go to college and better yourself. I'm leaving. You know, Dominic's already been arrested. Nick's gone. Nick just, I don't know where the hell he ever went. And everything just kind of fell apart. And I said, yes, sir. He says, do me one thing. Just keeping up, just checking on my son now and then. And I said, yes, sir. And his son at the time was like 6. I said, yes, sir. And that was the last time I saw him. And he left. They eventually caught him in Europe. You know, his ex-wife or his wife set him up. And at that time, I went to school. And that's where, like, I guess you could say the second chapter of my life started. When I was at school, these two clowns come with their J.C. Penney suits and told me, I'm like looking at these two, and they told me we need to talk. And that when I saw them, I thought to myself, what do these clowns want? What the? And I was basically, you know, I was almost going to tell them to get up. And but I thought to myself, what do these guys want? So I went with them, and we ended up going to this little, I guess, it had a green roof, just like a little restaurant in the town. And they say, would this order coffee? You want something to eat? I'm like, not really. You know, I'll take some orange juice. And I remember to this day, I mean, it's so vivid that they threw this little envelope for me and said, hey, when you supposed to see some awesome pictures? And I thought to myself, what? So I opened a picture. There's one of my dad with Eddie, uh, my dad with Dominic, with a couple other guys, my dad in Vegas with people. I'm like, oh, okay. You know, they showed me with them and all this, and they're looking at me and they're like, well, you're looking like 7 years in prison for everybody. We got you on this. We know what you did. They showed pictures of me doing things. And I didn't give a shit. I'll be honest. I didn't care about my dad. I don't ever care. I'm like, go ahead, send him to prison. Who gives a shit? Do what you want. Then they threw pictures of my mom and they said, check this one out. Who's this? And I'm looking, they show one with her and Eddie, her with a couple other people, her taking, it looks like money. And they said, well, we're all going to get all of you guys go to prison. And I don't care who in the world could say it. They're not a mama's boy. I was a mama's boy, and that's just the way it was. And when they said about my mom, the whole thing changed. I'm going to tell you right now, my heart, I didn't care about me. I didn't. But my mom went through hell when my parents left, World War II they lived in Budapest during World War II. And 56 revolution, they had to escape because they were partisans. So she went through hell. At the time I didn't know what hell she went through, but I knew that she went through enough. And I'm like, okay, what do you want? Don't worry about it. We'll talk to you, but we want you to think about this. And these two clowns dropped me off. For 2 months, I couldn't do shit. I played like shit. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat. And I didn't know what to do. And when they came back, I said, well, I'm not saying a damn thing against any guys I ran with. We don't give a shit about them. How about these pictures? Show me more pictures. Now it's me talking to these politicians and a couple police officers, about a dozen police officers. This is what we care about. And I'm like, whatever. And they go, well, first we'll let you know. We want you to party your way out of school. We're going to give you some money. Go play with the college girls, And before all that, before they dropped me off, the one clown looks at me and he goes, hey, you heard of the RICO laws? This is what we're talking about. It's a new law out there. He's like, you're a college boy. Go to the library and look it up. Because I had no clue what this was. And I'll be honest, I was 20 at the time, 19 going on 20. And I went to school late because it's just the way it was. I had some problems in school. And I thought to myself, okay, let me go look this up. And it was a new law. And that's what they were using against me. And I thought, well, they're going to use it against my mom and use it for my dad. Like I said, I didn't give a shit my dad went. And they came back and they said, party your way out of school. And I did. I partied, played with the girls, and then I got home. And after about 2 weeks home, one of them said, hey, let's go meet us at this place. So I met him there. There's a couple towns over. I was in New York. And I'm talking to them, and they're like, here's what we want you to do. We want you to get on this police department and want you to become a police officer. And then we'll tell you after you get on what we want you to do. And I'm like, what? This is what I mean. I go, what am I going to be, undercover? He goes, no, we're not putting you undercover. We're going to put you in as an informant, which basically means you're not going to have any backup or anything. So if something happens, you're going to have to figure it all out on your own.
Thanks for joining us. Your attention today brings us one step closer to exposing and eliminating the evil that brings crime to our communities. Hit subscribe and share this episode. Together, we will bring justice to every victim.